welcome back to the Unfleshed podcast. This is episode 16, and we're bringing in Jeff Prebis. Welcome.
Hey, glad to be here.
So kind of tell us about some of the books that you have out. I personally have seen you you post up some of them on even some of the groups that I own.
Yep, I've 4 novels at a time, short story collection. Some short stories are out as ebooks. I have a novella of Bloodsuck Boulevard. The novels are The Debacle, A Trip Down Psychopath Lane, Sexy People, Man Without a Country, and Walking on Razor Blades, the name of the short story collection. And they kind of cover a little bit of everything. Man Without a Country and Trip Down Psychopath Lane are kind of like a cross between horror and science fiction. The Debacle, it's pretty old. It came out in 2007, still around. Basically with that, it's I can tell you anything about it. You probably know who's going to buy it because they charge so much money for it. I can give you the whole story pretty much. The company's charging $22 for an 8-year-old book. That one, it basically plants evolve to the point where they can move, and the whole town's economy is based off the fact that the plants are made into bells at a factory. The factory employs the whole town. The plants rise up to the point where they attack the town, massacre everybody, and that's basically the story of a woman trying to find her son in the middle of all this craziness and just try to get out of town alive. A Trip Down Psychopath Lane is basically, it's imagine waking up one day in the room of your stalker, and then she can control you with a cell phone and make you do whatever she wants. So it's kind of misery-ish, but with a twist. And she likes weird sex, all that. And meanwhile, someone else took his identity and is living as him, forcing women to kill themselves with a drug. So it's kind of crazy. And the guy has his face, everything. So everybody thinks it's actually a famous actor. It's the actor's name is Johnny Craven. A made-up actor, of course, for the novel. But basically, he becomes Johnny Craven, lives Johnny Craven's life, lives in his mansion. Meanwhile, he's stuck doing all kinds of weird sexual fetish stuff with this stalker that he's been trying to avoid, for over the longest time. So it's kind of the contrast of the two. And then a detective's on the case, trying to figure out whereabouts of a missing girl. Her last Facebook post or whatever was to Johnny Craven, so she figured she'll investigate him. So she's trying to find him, in his mansion, thinking that the imposter is really him. And basically, the imposter is a stalker too. Basically, he's obsessed with the guys, in love with them, and so basically, he just takes his whole life over. Sexy People, basically, it's about sex parties, and it's about a couple. Their lives are pretty much going downhill. As far as how it works, they're bored. Every day's routine, and they're offered a chance to go to a sex party, and they give into it, try something different, and then the husband becomes addicted to it, the wife hates it, and it's kind of like tearing the relationship apart. And basically it's got a lot of weird sex, cannibalism, and it's pretty wild. Yeah, it's like the downward spiral of two people, just falling apart.
So basically, like a lot of the stuff that you go through is kind of like a psychological horror.
Yeah, I can say that. I mean, it's pretty bloody too. As far as Man Without a Country, that's more apocalyptic fiction. It's got a weird twist on zombies. They're not undead.
Yeah.
They just get reprogrammed by a computer virus. So every time you go on Facebook, every time you check your email, every time you go on Twitter, you have the virus gets you and turns you into a zombie. And basically they start out collecting things, and they start building. So it's kind of strange. It's not like they're running around killing people, so it's a different twist. And basically there's a kid, basically it's like a student at a high school who basically raises up a cult by using social media. So he's got like an army of young people ready to fight with him. And for the main character, his family's murdered the year before, and he always thinks the student has something to do with it, but the student kind of hints along the whole year that, hey, Sam, what happened to your parents? and they never liked each other from the beginning. I flash back to when he was a freshman, and they never got along from the start. So they spent 4 years hating each other basically, and then they kind of clash, and eventually at this point, when the world basically ends and turns into the apocalypse, Walking on Razor Blades, a short story collection, that pretty much has everything in it. It's got a lot of vampire sex stories. A lot of it's old material for me from like '05 when I first got published by the same publisher who did Walking on Razor Blades. Like pretty much with that, it goes with there's a lot of vampire sex stories because he wanted a lot of erotica, erotic horror. As far as covers a lot of ground. I mean, they go all off the wall on it. To tell you the truth, there's a guy that took too many drugs, ends up ripping his own dick off in the end.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the short stories, yeah. So some of them are pretty off the wall. I'm gonna leave it out. Bloodsucker Boulevard's a vampire one. It's a novella. As far as that one goes, it may be a little too funny because I do cross the line too much with comedy, but still got the blood and guts, sex. It's an interesting take on vampires. They live in a gated community, use humans as slaves.
So, would you consider that more, I guess, humor horror?
Yeah, kind of like a dark, like more dark, kind of dark comedy, sort of like a dark comedy. But it has blood and guts too, and sex and stuff like that, and it has moments of horror. People are getting killed left and right. So, yeah.
I think you definitely got to bring in, your sex and violence to pretty much bring in any successful horror story. So.
Yeah.
So how long have you actually been writing for?
I started out back in 2002. Yeah. For about 13 and a half years.
Yeah. And how many books have you got out in that time period?
Everything I mentioned. Yep.
So
I don't want gap. My first novel came out. The Debacle came out in 2007. Then I didn't get anything published for 5 years. I kept chasing New York publishers instead of going after like more indie publishers. Once I went with indie publishers, everything seems to get published.
Yeah, it's definitely hard chasing those big publishers down. I spent many years in the beginning before I really even knew absolutely anything about pretty much the whole concept behind any of it. And I had only heard about blurb.com, and that's where I started out at. And they're selling my books for $70 a piece, and of course nobody's going to pay that for it. So, I just didn't do much. So I spent the many years after that doing query letters, and I just got denial after denial after denial, and I don't know, man. I went with a publishing company, which was an indie publisher. First one turned out to be a scam artist company. The second one I went with was actually an indie publisher, but they're throwing out my stuff with all these other genres that was never going to sell my books. So, anyways, I've kind of had a bad run at that.
Yep. Well, the main thing people got to realize too about when you write, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this, and then if you don't sell, you get pressure from the publishers to sell more, or else you're not going to get anything else out. So you always have the constant pressure of, okay, I got to sell some more books. The more stuff you get published, the more pressure it puts on you. It takes you away from the writing basically, because you're spending a lot of time promoting, trying to do this and that, trying to get people's attention, get them to buy the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I took on writing as a full-time job. So I mean, I feel pressure from me and my family on that aspect. But so here's the one question that I always ask absolutely every author that comes on to here. Actually, I'm not even gonna say author. I actually even asked even the vocalist from Mushroom Head the other day. What is one thing that you are never asked, but if you were asked, would help explain you?
That's a pretty good question. Where do I get my ideas from? I never hear.
Huh. Well, where do you get your ideas from?
I don't know. Anything, everyday life. Weird dreams sometimes. I just have like a dream, or maybe like one little thing will come to mind, will pop in my head, and I'll start writing some notes about it, scribble on pieces of paper, sit in front of the computer, start going. I've done a lot of the interviews I've done, because they rarely ask that, like, where do you get your ideas from? It's more, explaining a novel or so forth.
We definitely try to be a little bit different on this podcast. Yeah. I guess my next question would have to be, what's actually been the most successful way to go about for your marketing or whatnot?
I try everything pretty much. I don't think there is one successful way, to tell you the truth, that I've figured out. It's always been a struggle. The market's so saturated nowadays with people. It's hard. It's hard to get attention when other people have been out. Everybody pretty much forgot about the debacle after 07. I mean, 5 years later, I came out with Walking Reverse Boys, a short story collection. Nobody was buying the debacle after like the first year, and then everybody who knew about the book just kind of forgot about me. And then I pop up again in 2012, and I got to start all over again pretty much. And I've been just scraping and grinding, trying to get going.
So how long does it actually take you to write a book?
Sometimes it could be 6 months. Depending on length, it could be a year. It could be a year and a half. Depends on sometimes I don't know. Sometimes you get a little writer's block. Sometimes you get worn out on writing a book. And what I'll do, I'll stop writing that one and work on something different. So I'll work on that for a while. Get in like good 40,000 words on that. Then go back to the other novel and wrap it up. Finish that up. Go through all little proofreading. So forth. See if I want to change anything. So yeah, because right now I'm doing 2 at a time right now.
Yeah.
I'm switching up, like going back and forth. And they're so different in scope that one novel, there's such different novels that they don't, as far as like taking one, like having the same ideas with both novels, that rarely happens to me. Because it varies every time. They're always pretty different as far as the theme. So when I write that way, I'm not just basically writing the same novel again. It's something totally different. So that allows the creative process. It gives you a break from the one particular novel where you're sitting there. I can't read this anymore. It's like I need to get away from this. And then you start doing something completely different, and it frees you up. You go back and like, hey, this novel was fun. It's great. Hey, let me go ahead and go back and write this. I love it.
Well, and on that, on writing several books at one time, do you have like a hard time, I guess, kind of staying on key with each one of them?
I read through them a lot, to tell you the truth, because I'll go through a process. I mean, I'll read it over like about 6 times, 7 times after I write it, just to make sure that everything's together. It's all perfectly. Everything ties in, all the characters, and so forth. Yeah, but it's good for the creative process. I like to do the 2 in 1 idea. So you switch back and forth, kind of like going in between them.
Well, and the reason I ask is because I'm pretty known for writing about 5 at a time. And I never really, I guess, quite lose myself to where I don't know what's going on. But sometimes I have to spend more time reading back through what I already had to kind of get back on key with where I left off. So I was just kind of curious, if you had that same experience there.
Well, I always keep notes. I always have like a pile of notes about each novel. Like I'll just scraps of paper. So I got pretty much have it mapped out what I'm gonna do. So all I have to do is look at where I'm at in the book, and then go back, check the notes out. Okay, I need to put this here, and then fill it in seamlessly, from there, and keep going with it.
And how's your success been as far as having followers and fans?
It's difficult. It's hard out there.
Oh, definitely.
It's like I said, you always got pressures from publishers, sell more books. Yeah. I can't say I'm a bestseller. I'm on the least seller list,
But I'm probably right there with you.
I know you're never going to see a novel from me that says best-selling author.
Yeah.
You know, it's good. Next one may have least-selling author. Who knows?
Well, if they come up with that award, I definitely would be in the runnings for it.
I know, right?
I just released out my 35th book, and matter of fact, right before this interview, I just was going through Amazon and counting up my reviews. And out of 35 books, it breaks down to where I've had 80 reviews, which a lot of those have no reviews. And whenever you average it out, it averages out to about 3 or so, reviews per book. It's almost downgrading. It kind of gives you a different outlook on things.
Yeah, 'cause it's hard to get reviews sometimes. Because a lot of people just read it and, they don't even think about reviewing. The reviews are important, too, because when people click on, they want to see, what people think about it. Like Mail's Out of Country, I've had that out since February. There's no reviews on it, but it's been bought, and it's like nobody, feels like reviewing the book.
Oh, yeah. Well, and as far as that goes, I mean, do you do like a lot of giveaways?
Nah, I'm not allowed to by the publishers.
Huh.
That's the only thing, pretty much. Yeah, I can't do any giveaways or anything like that.
And I guess that's one of my biggest downfalls for things whenever it comes to the reviews, because I've sold thousands of books and I've given away hundreds of books, and so I mean the sales has kind of been there for me, but as far as the reviews go, it's like if I take my own time to write this book and I spend my own money to turn around and buy it and give it to you, you would think that they could at least do a minimum of leaving a review. So and I think that's one of those things that it doesn't matter if it's a good review or a bad review, because I actually learn more from a bad review than I do from a good review, because you kind of can limitate on what you need to do. Things that's kind of your downfall.
Yeah, you learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd say, like somebody's opinion is like, maybe I could change something in the future, go a different route.
Yeah.
And any review is a good review. I mean, because it's publicity.
Oh yeah.
It always helps. I mean, everybody's got their opinion too. Very bad review, you might get like, however many good reviews that offset it.
Oh yeah, and it's like I tell authors that are starting out all the time, that gets a bad review. You can't please everybody. So I mean, what's not your cup of tea, maybe somebody else's. So I mean, or in my case, beer. But I everybody knows I drink on a daily basis and all that. But I mean, I think a lot of that comes with writing. I haven't really met too many writers out there that doesn't really drink.
Yep, I'm included.
I mean, I think that kind of comes with creativity.
Yeah.
So, well, what's some references that I guess you use the most as far as doing like research for your books?
I don't really do as much research, to tell you the truth. I do a little bit here and there, but just on specific topics. If it's something kind of obscure, I'll do a lot of research on it, but not too much. Usually I just go with the flow. I make up cities, make up towns, make them the way I want to make them.
Do you make up like a different town or city for like each thing that you write, or are you kind of like lean towards one?
Oh, I got some stuff that's in LA. That's real, obviously. But a lot of my like in the debacle, I make up a town called Buxom. That's the name of the plants too. Is Buxom.
Yeah.
Buxom plants that eventually kill everybody in the town. So it's and I don't know, it kind of varies, because I don't really like referencing like Facebook. I'll use yourrules.com a lot. Instead of Facebook, just try, because I try to always change stuff. Like instead of Walmart, I use Hallmark. Like I don't know, so I kind of make up my own worlds when I'm writing. So it's like not really, research never really comes into play, because I'm not really using real things. It's just everything's made up. It's all fiction.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what all you actually use outside of Facebook, but I mean, I've kind of learned that there's Sue.com, which is actually it's tsu.co if you look it up, but yeah, they pronounce it Sue.
Yep.
Twitter I've used a little bit, but I've never ever had anybody that's came across and said, "Hey, I found your book off Twitter."
Yeah, it's more for me
Yeah,
either.
so man, there's so much shit in there that it's really hard to get anything across because just in the time for me to do a post over something, it says I already have like 50 messages and waiting. So that's 50 messages that's burying my shit as soon as I throw it out.
Yep.
So I don't know. I've had a hard time with that, but there's also like Bookatopia. Uh, oh hell, there's several of them. And here lately, I've actually been using that Drafted Digital, and my wife actually found that I guess like during a Google search or something, and it puts it out to where you don't have to do like Smashwords and all that. Like this puts it out for Nook, and it actually makes it to where your ebooks are available for like Books a Million and all these other places that generally doesn't offer it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yep.
So what's the biggest thing that people think that they know about your genre, but it isn't so?
Can you say it again? I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Well, what is the biggest thing that people think that they know about your genre, but it isn't so?
Um, the horror can have a little bit of humor to it. That's not what I believe. I like a little bit of light to balance out with the dark. Because because if you're gonna have bloodshed, all kinds of lunacy, have it real dark. I like to have characters with a little charisma. Because I have a sense of humor, so every character basically is me. To tell you the truth, I mean, it's like me in different circumstances that I would never face in real life. How I would handle those different circumstances.
Yeah.
So I always try to keep like a sense of humor to it. You know, not like because I do everything. Basically, I don't know. I have a kind of a kooky sense of humor to begin with, so so it's a little bit offbeat. So it fits in pretty good. You get a little laugh for a second, then somebody gets killed. And then it's like I usually do that at the beginning of the book, and then as we progress, it gets darker and darker and darker.
And yeah, it's kind of like Terry West. I don't know if you know who he is, but he does a lot of like humor horror, I guess you'd say.
Yep.
I can't even think of a title of any of his books right offhand, but yeah, he's got some pretty crazy shit going on out there. So, who would you say would be some of your favorite authors, maybe in the indie world, that's kind of influenced some of your work?
Well, I like Carl Tomelic from Race Red Press. You ever heard of him?
No.
Yeah, he's a bizarre author. Basically, they started their own press, started their own movement, made up their own genre. Because he does a lot of like really surreal. Everything he does is surreal. Yeah, like he had a novel, The Haunted Vagina. The woman's her vagina's haunted.
Yeah.
He had one of his books. I don't want to give away too many details about somebody else, but he had one called The Jesus Baby Butt Plug. He has a lot of offbeat. I like him. That's my favorite indie author because he comes up with some off the wall stuff. He actually got picked up by Random House. He has an ebook out. I think that it's basically it's I think it's called Clown Fellas, and it's based off like clowns being in a mafia. And it's like I think it's from what I read about like as far as it basically the description. It's like they're in the Prohibition era, but instead of banning alcohol, they ban humor. So clowns are on the underground. There's like an underground clown circuit, and they all have like turf wars or something. It's kind of crazy. Mainstream, I like Clive Barker and Chet Palahniuk are probably my two favorites as far as Clive Barker going back to like I don't know, like I probably had to be like around 12 when I started reading him. I'm reading the Scarlet Gospels right now by him, which it's really good. But if you would have put it out 20 years ago, it would have been a hell of a lot better because they made so many sequels to Hellraiser.
Oh yeah.
And Pinhead's like the main character in the Scarlet Gospels. So you sort of watch it. So basically, it's reading a sequel to The Hellbound Heart, which was the original one he wrote. It was a novella.
Yeah.
But it took him a long time to write it.
Oh yeah, and they're actually talking about making another sequel to the Hellraiser based off of that. But from my
Yeah.
understanding on that, he's actually going to take back over producing that because he was producing the first films of it, and then he sold his video rights, and it got taken over, and it kind of started going a little south. And from my understanding, he's going to pick that back up. So
Yeah, we directed the original.
he did.
Yeah, he directed Hellraiser, the first one.
Yeah.
After the second one, I don't really like any of them, to tell you the truth. I mean,
Yeah, it goes downhill.
Yeah, because they just kind of went overboard with it, overdid it with going about 10 or however many movies. Yeah, but he was highly influential to me when I was young. He was the guy that really made me want to write. I was such a huge fan. I saw Candyman, or I think I saw Nightbreed or Candyman, and I was like, then I found out he was an author, and I started reading his books like left and right, like religiously, and I was like, I want to do this. This is something I really love to do. You know, I love this guy. You know, over the years though, he's not at the level he was back with the Books of Blood, and you know, but which is also incredible, by the way. What are your thoughts on the Books of Blood? Classic.
Yeah, and from my understanding, actually, doesn't he have some indie books out there?
Yeah, he's got some. I don't know. It's hard because I think it's hard to read sometimes because I don't know. I think in the beginning he was a lot better than he is nowadays. I don't know.
Oh, and you know, I think everybody kind of hits their downfalls because I mean, at one point, I mean, you're writing for the love of what you're doing, and you know, for what you're able to bring to that table. And once you go on so much, then you know you're either writing for your publishing house or you're writing for your fans in general. And so you kind of lose that little sense of what you're doing in the first place because of that fact.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm one of those people that like I write for me, and I probably piss off people all the time because I get suggestions on what I should do all the time. And and actually I'm compared to Clive Barker / Stephen King with a lot of my books. But that's just one of those things that it is what it is. I mean, if that's what it turns into, then awesome. But I'm gonna write my own little style, and people are gonna like it or they're gonna hate it.
Yeah, I've been compared to Carlton Mellick and like kind of like I've heard like a cross between Clive Barker and Chuck Palahniuk. You know, Palahniuk the Fight Club, because he always has that dark sense of humor to all of his work.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I always get. But I was compared to Carlton Mellick because I was doing a lot of off the wall stuff. But really, we don't write anything alike because everything I do is based in the real world. It's not because like I don't do any Baby Jesus Butt Plug books or anything like that. But
yeah. Well, are you a full-time writer or are you a part-time writer?
A little bit of both, kind of in between. It depends what I'm doing at the time. Because I work also, and pretty much you'd say a part-time writer. But I do spend about 8 hours a day, writing. So.
Is there any jobs that you've actually held that I guess would inspire like any of your books?
Yeah, maybe. I did collections, and I was thinking about like, what do you do? I never actually wrote a book about it though, but I always had thought maybe about if somebody didn't pay their bill, what if you like took their child or something like that? Some kind of weird idea. But I never got around to it. I never really got around to writing it. Kind of threw away as just a throwaway idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would you say on how you feel about between ebooks and your paperbacks?
The ebooks seem to sell a lot better than my paperbacks, to tell you the truth. Because Sexy People and the Debacle are paperbacks. Those are probably they're not selling that wonderfully. The weirdest thing is that I have a short story that Black and Blue that seems to sell a lot. And it's kind of like a throwaway story that I didn't even like. And all of a sudden, people seem to buy that one all the time. And it's always the ones you don't like or don't think are good that people end up buying the most.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I know it's funny because I absolutely didn't like it, and I was kind of like ready to throw it away, and then I got it published, and then people start buying. It's like, And it's like, I can't believe they're actually buying this book. I can't believe they're buying this ebook. And it's like, they're doing it.
And yeah, I'll tell you what, my best-selling book that I've got out there, I honestly, even to this day, still wait for it to be protested. I mean, I didn't figure, that the sales were going to be there as well as they have been. So it's it's kind of weird to me. Every time I see a new sale in there, I'm just like, all right, here it comes. And I'll get a review from it. It's like, oh my god, I love this book. I'm just like, seriously? It was pretty twisted.
That's kind of like this one, this short story. It just popped out of the blue one day. It's an ebook. Came out with Bitten Press. Because I have a lot of short stories out with them. Sexy People's out with them. Bloodsucker Boulevard. So a lot of the earlier stuff I did with them was erotic horror, where it's more like it's not anything apocalyptic, or it's more like kind of like you have the sex, then some kind of horrific thing happens a little later on,
And you see a lot of apocalyptic stuff happening these days. That and erotica. That's like the top two things. If it doesn't pertain to like zombies or erotica, it doesn't seem like it goes as far as what it should go.
I never even thought Man Without a Country to get published. So the truth, I pitched that novel to everybody in New York. I wrote it in 2010, and then I got picked up by Bermuda Press. Contacted me end of 2013. They're saying, yeah, we're interested. We'll have a contract sent to you, and I ended up getting it like early 2014, and came out this year. They signed me for another one too, which is I think my best novel. But I got to wait a really long time. It's going to be like the end of 2016, early 2017 before it'll actually be released. And I have to actually sell a lot of books in order to get it published, or else I'm not going to do it. So that's where the pressure comes in. It's like I got to sell Me Without a Country.
Well, and as far as that goes, I mean, what's kind of the difference between your indie publishing and publishing through a publishing house? Like, I mean, do you only get paid like every 6 months, every year, or what?
Kind of depends. Basically, it's quarterly, I believe, with Bermuda Press. I have to pay back my advance, so I'm not making anything right now. They pay me money up front. I have to pay back the advance. So I get the sales report that shows me chipping away at what they paid me up front.
Yeah. And I mean, as an indie author coming in, I mean, are you actually looking at like a decent advance that's actually going to make a difference, or is it kind of like a low advance? It's just like okay, thank you. I mean, I don't know how to put that, I guess, in proper terms.
I'd rather go with the low advance, because the idea of paying it back does not sound good. To tell you the truth, you really, but just for the sake of if you fail, if somebody gives you a few $1,000s, that's going to be a lot of books to sell in order to make that money back, and then you have to pay it right back to them anyway if you fail.
Yeah.
So I'd rather go with a smaller advance. If I'm a bestseller, yeah, I'll take a big advance. But like I said, right now I'm lingering in the least sellers list. So.
Well, and on that, do you just pay back what is advanced to you, or do you have like interest and all that to go on top of that?
Rephrase again? I'm sorry.
On like getting advances, do you just pay back what you got, or is there to where you have to pay a certain amount back to them? I mean, basically, like, okay, say they give you $10,000, you just pay that $10,000 back, or do you have interest to where you have to pay like say $12,000?
I've never actually had to pay anything back yet, but basically. The theory is you just chip away at the advance. So like every time I sell a certain number of books, the retail value of it cuts into the advance amount. So it just subtracts until it goes down. So let's say you start 1,000, it's like 200, so you're down to 800, Sell another 200, 600, Sell more, keep trickling down. You only pay back what was remaining on the advance.
Yeah, so I mean, they don't take interest or anything else. It's basically that they give you a certain amount, and that's what you have to pay back. And that's cool because I've heard so many horror stories alone from authors. It's like, oh, well, they give you $10,000, for doing this certain novel, and then they turn around and they get like $15,000 back from you. So what's your process, your step process, I guess you'd say, as far as going through and publishing through your publishing company?
Basically, they do the edits, let me know like what they want to change, and if there are any changes, I make the adjustments, send it back, send me another copy of it, take a look at, and then get it out there.
Now, on that, do you do those changes or do they?
Only if they edit the book, and if they have any suggestions about stuff, they'll give it back to me, let me do it. So instead of instead of having the editor write the book, since I'm the person who knows it best, I like the idea, where I can do it myself, have my voice, my imprint on it, instead of someone else's who didn't write it,
And I've also heard a lot of horror stories as far as that goes too. As far as editors kind of going in and like altering chapters, taking out chapters, etc.
Yeah.
Instead of actually giving the author that opportunity. So.
Yeah, I've never had the problem. I mean, they'll send it back and they'll give me a chance to do it myself, and I don't have a problem. I prefer it that way, because I don't want anybody taking chapters out without me knowing about it, or locking the deal down where it's going to be this way without my chance to do it myself. I don't want anybody just ripping chapters out of the book and, okay, this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
Because you put so much time and effort into it, and sometimes you don't agree, with the changes, but if it, because I've talked to editors, but like I think we should just go with the flow on it, but I'm willing to, I'll make the adjustments.
Well, is there any projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, I'm working on 2 novels. Yeah.
Is there anything you can kind of give a heads up on those?
Not really, because I don't have a contract for them, so I can't really go too far into detail. Yeah. Basically, one involves bringing people back to life. I had to watch The Lazarus Effect just to make sure that they weren't raising the dead the same way. I don't know. I probably spoiled that for people that didn't see it. It's not that great of a horror movie anyway, but it sucks. But it sucks. But it's kind of. I just wanted to see how they were doing it. It was different from the way I'm doing it, and it's just. I want to give you a little bit about it. Basically, a wanted man who ends up causing people to be resurrected from the dead. So it's hard for me to go like too much detail on it. To tell you the truth, I like that novel too much. I can't talk about it too much.
Yeah. I understand. I mean, I don't know. I'm not good at keeping secrets or whatever. So I mean, I throw out, I guess a lot of teasers on a lot of my stuff, and that's probably even if it pans out or if it doesn't, and everything pans out in the end. It's just I might take a break from it. I mean, I've got some things that I'm writing on right now that I started back in 2009. So it's definitely had some years to kind of to go across. So
yeah, looks like Man Without a Country. I never thought they would get published because I gave up on it. I always thought it was it's probably my 3rd best novel, but I just gave up on it. After a while. I mean, after you get rejected by everybody in the New York, and for 2 years you're like, I guess it's crap. But then when I had the chance to because they wanted to make some changes to it, the editor was go through and do this, and I read it again, and I stand by that. That's my best published novel out. It's the blood and guts, and it's ridiculous. The main, going back to what I was talking about, the main character when he was young was kidnapped by a family of cannibals who basically kidnap boys, have sex with them. It's on a pig farm, and they're mad at him because he stays skinny because they're fattening the kids up to eat him, and then he's able to escape, go back and live his normal life, or as best you can after you go through that kind of psychological damage, and then of course his family gets murdered. so because you always wonder about how sane he is. He buys a chimpanzee after his family's murdered, just to kind of cope. Because I was thinking about dogs. I've read a lot of Dean Koontz. He always has a dog in the book. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going the dog route. Let's try to figure out something different. And I got drunk one night. I'm sitting back, smoking a cigarette. I'm like, what about chimp? I want to go for chimp. so roll with chimp.
Yeah, I've actually I read Ted Nolte. He brings in for the zombies, and he kind of used his animals as a main aspect behind that. I actually thought that was badass. It was definitely a new approach, at least for that side of things, because everybody's into zombies these days, and so many of my fans hit me up and like, oh, dude, you gotta write a zombie book. Like, I'd love to hear a zombie book from you. Like, do you have fans that are kind of like that? I guess for you.
Well, Man Without Country, like I said, they're zombies, but they're not undead zombies. That's the thing. They're basically, their whole mind has been reprogrammed by a computer virus. So you can't talk to them. They don't listen to you. If you try to get in their way of collecting something, they attack you. But if you just ignore them, they don't do anything to you.
Huh. Well, do you write off an outline, or do you pretty much just take that through intuition, through your head, or whatever?
Like I said, I mentioned before, I go with notes. I just scribble down notes and go. I'll have like little scraps of paper in front of me, and I'll just basically like one chapter or whatever. A lot of it's freestyling though. I just basically I'll use the notes for a certain amount, like certain parts I definitely want to have in the novel, and then as I go on, I just kind of flow with it.
Well, and as far as breaking down your notes, I mean, are you like breaking down chapters, or are you breaking down just like a story in a whole of kind of the direction you wanted to go?
In the beginning, yeah, I'll basically write down what the novel's going to be about, and then, but I look at it enough times where I almost don't even need it anymore. I pretty much just toss it out. I already got in my mind what I'm going to do, and I just sit in front of the computer and go. You have a couple beers or a lot of beers.
Yeah.
Just roll with it, yeah.
I mean, you said you read back through like your work quite a bit or whatever. So I mean, you do quite a bit of proofreading.
Yeah, just to make sure just to touch it up as much as possible, because you can't depend on editors always to be good. That's the thing about it. Because sometimes they just fly through stuff and there's mistakes galore.
Yeah.
So I believe. I mean, I need to do everything myself. Because it's not because they're not going to. The editor's name is not going to be on the book. It's going to be your name.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean that even goes for like Stephen King. He goes through like 6 editors, but then you can go back and you can still find edits that were missed in his books. So I mean, I wouldn't think on any situation you're going to get anything that's edited down to a very, very fine T. And you're always going to find grammar Nazis out there that's going to, bitch and protest on this and that.
Yep.
So.
They're out there.
So, who does your book covers?
I got 4 different publishers, so it kind of varies.
So, I mean, it basically comes from your publishers?
Yep.
That's cool. I've recently started using Dean Samad. He's actually done work for Stephen King, Clive Barker, and several other authors, many actually publishing houses as well. And so far, it's been pretty good. It's very expensive, but he's been pretty successful for me thus far. So we'll see kind of how the future goes. Well, real quick, you want to tell everybody where they can find you at?
Yeah. Find me on Facebook. I have an author page. If you go to my personal Having Fun page, You can have a few good laughs. I'm always making jokes. Always got some stories to tell. As far as the work, you can find me any place an ebook sold, bn.com, amazon.com, Smashwords. They're out there. Just gotta find them.
Oh yeah. Well, it's been really great having you on the show, and I appreciate you. You hit me up to come on the show.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it.
Burn you to the ground, 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 burn you